Podcast. I have a fascinating guest with me today. He's back. Every time he does a show, he always does a really good show. I have with me Nathan Sizak from the Voices of Orion Project. He's also goes by Hajay and Contact D on YouTube. Today, he's going to be talking about Project Ibis, the Project Ibis Deception, alien agendas, AI, artificial intelligence, the war against Starseeds, what's currently going on with our government, and different factions of ETs that might have like control on our reality and stuff like that. And I think that's it. And he'll explain more. He always does really well. So without further, and with a little bit more about my guest, Nathan is a truth seeker. And as I said, he's the Voices of Orion or Hajay and Contact D YouTube channel, and I have the links in the description. So I have his email in there. I have his YouTube channel. Follow him, and if you need to, email him. And with all that said, I want to give him a big warm welcome back to the show. Nathan, thank you for coming back. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Rob. A little bit of nervousness today, but that's because I'm not organized in my mind. But I just wanted to show you that I got your typical Skeptic podcast shirt on here in celebration.
Oh, that's awesome!
Just in recognition of this. So
it looks good,
anyway,
man. It looks really good.
Thank you very much. I just want to publicly thank you because for 14 years I tried to go public, and and this is no exaggeration. You actually helped to save my life because I would have been murdered by the program if I didn't wake up and actually go public. So there was a lot going on there. You were one of the more important facets in that whole struggle. Because it wasn't for you.
I wanted to say, I think you said you were getting shadow banned, but I think the algorithm is actually starting to recommend your videos because they're starting to come up in my feed more. Like the more I watch your videos, the more and more they're coming up in my feed. So maybe things are changing for your channel, and I see you're getting a lot more subscribers now too.
Yeah, I've had to complain to different platforms. I'm actually on a YouTube suspension right now. I said some things I wasn't supposed to say about a man eating a sandwich in a wet market, and you can't talk about that even 3 years later. So I have to apologize for YouTube and to Mr. Science for that. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. So anyway, let's get this started. I've done probably 6 videos with you, or 6 interviews, and it has to do with me being in a program called Project Ibis, Project Surrogate. I was abducted at age 6, and this actually goes back to another lifetime right before this one. It started in 1947, and these are memories that have come through mainly after a hypnotherapy session that I had with James Rink. It sort of kind of opened up the floodgates a little bit. And most of the things that have happened to me have happened actually in my life here. They're not actually fragmented memories and so forth. So what I'm really working on now is exposing facets of the IBIS program, which involves a transdimensional psychic psyop that's all over the planet involving the New Age movement and occult belief systems. And of course, this is one of the things that the UFO community sees as taboo, because when you bring Satanism into the mix, they tend to have an aversion to that for some reason, even though it's very prevalent in all of the super soldier stories and so forth. You have satanic ritual abuse and so on and so forth. I wanted to start just by saying something. I've been reaching out to a lot of people in the community, including the skeptical side, and I respect them because they seem to do some of the more accurate research. The problem is their minds are pretty closed and they're not open to new information. Remote viewing is something that's been substantiated by the Central Intelligence Agency, and you can look up things that they have released over the years that support that remote viewing is actually real and is used by the U.S. government and various agencies. So when there's people out there that talk about the super soldiers or the SSP storytellers, and they say that they're just storytellers, they say that there's no validity to this. It's either a grift or a mass delusion. I just want to point out that the Farsight Institute did a very, very good research study on this. It's called Super Soldiers of Cirrus. And you can find it on their website. And you can also find a short video which explains it here on YouTube. Problem is I found that if you try to share the link in the comments section for the Super Soldiers of Series, the AI automatically removes it to probably, to make it harder to spread that information. So there's a bit of suppression going on. The same thing is also happening too with the Joy of Satan, because, and what that is, that's not a satanic cult. It's an Enki cult, it's an Anunnaki cult that uses Satanism as psychological camouflage so that it hides itself, and it utilizes the satanic stigma to keep UFO researchers away. So for 14 years, I've been trying to tell people about this. Is also the other thing I've been trying to explain too is that we live in an AI transdimensional planetary consciousness simulation, which recently in the last couple of years has started to take root and started to gain acceptance in this community. But 15 years ago, if you brought this up, they looked at you like you were crazy. And I never got a response to any of my email attempts when I reached out to researchers or individuals like yourself. You were the first person that actually gave me an opportunity to speak on the matter. So I really appreciate that. And also, like I said, it helped me get myself out of the program because I had to wake up. And the only way that I could wake up was to go public and start to talk about this and then find help that way, which then led to me getting out of these programs. So I just wanted to.
You're one of the few people, Nate, that is like kind of like in the middle, like where you're a little bit skeptical like me, but at the same time you believe in the SSP. Like I believe in the SSP. I'll have them on my show. Like I don't know how far their stories go. I'm not sure. I'm not saying I don't believe them at all. I still have everyone on my show. That I like to have everyone on my show. It's just like, I can't verify anybody's story. You know what I mean? That's why I put the poll out on my channel. I said, what do you guys think of the SSP? And everybody came back that answered that question. Like all my subscribers were saying, yes, it's real. Everybody's saying it's very real. Like everybody agrees with like us that it's very real and that there's something really going on. And here's something else I was going to throw in that the skeptical side isn't looking at. How much NASA lies to us? Why doesn't the skeptical side talk about that? Like that NASA has very much lied to us for a very long time about everything. You know what I mean? So why can't we believe some of these stories? Because if NASA's lying to us, how far does the NASA lie go? Is that a good point or no?
It's a very good point. And the reason for that is because it's more comfortable to associate yourself with mainstream opinions or mainstream information. It also helps to look, but it also makes you look, like you're more learned and, you've actually done the research. So if you use authoritative sources and you compare that to what you're calling a grift, then you can easily build a case for this whole thing as a fraud. The problem is that from what I'm seeing, a lot of the people who are out there who are making this argument are not part of the government. They're not trying to do something nefarious. They've gotten to the point where they have no faith in other people anymore. They think that everything is a grift at this point. And that's why they gravitate to the authoritative sources. When you say that there's a secret space program happening on another timeline and they point out that there's no evidence in, say, JPL images, there's nothing there. Why wouldn't we see this? There is evidence, but not very much, because you're not dealing with something that's on, the same timeline as this. And once you start talking about that, it sounds like sci-fi fantasy. So it's very easy for these people to say, I want real hardcore evidence. When you're dealing with something that's rooted in the manipulation of consciousness and time, finding hardcore evidence is very, very difficult. You can find implants, and you more or less have photographs and videos. So if I take this information, to MUFON, which I've tried on their Facebook, they immediately shut me out. They won't allow me to post anything. I've tried to post the connection between satanic cults or Enki cults and the ET presence in the creation of religions. I was just in the Ancient Aliens Facebook page just a few days ago, and it was 90% negative. One person actually said that I should be committed to an institution and locked up so that I don't hurt anyone. They all said the same thing, Rob. They all said the same thing. I want evidence. I want evidence. So I said, well, here's an article from the Toronto Sun, and I said it's a murder suicide. I said, this is the same mind control scenario that I was put through, and several other people that I knew was put through. Okay. And I also challenged them to take that link and actually upload that to YouTube and say, like, in the comment section, if you put the link to anything negative about the joy of Satan, about the murder suicide, in a link here on YouTube, the AI immediately removes it.
You know why? I'll tell you why. Because you can't display acts of like graphic violence. That I think that's what it is. I know it's not. I know it's against Satanism, but it still is violence. So they'll look at it as like that. I think that's what's triggering the AI. I don't know. I don't know the AI. Oh, that's what I would guess, though. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's what I was assuming. That why censor the Farsight Institute link to the Sirius, Super Soldier video? So there's another one. I mean, that's something else too. And there's nobody that I can't email and get an answer from YouTube. They're not going to answer anything like that. I'm not going to get a response. And there's nothing in that article that really talks about. It's not it's more or less just it explains what happened, and it's some statements from the court case, which is what I use to figure out that this was a mind control scenario that I was part of as well. So it really doesn't help anybody to hide information, and it looks like there's a cover-up. And there quite possibly is, because the way these cover-ups work is the Department of Homeland Security is the one that's actually behind the internet censorship. So they'll give these companies a list of either individuals or certain things that they want suppressed, and we all know that. That's all public knowledge now. It's not a conspiracy theory. The problem is the people who seek the authoritative sources will still call it a conspiracy theory. And that's the issue. It's an issue with antiquated thinking and a lot of groupthink.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get into this a little bit. Okay, what is Project Ibis? Okay, Project Ibis is not just what James Rink talks about, or Max Spears, or any of these other people. It's not just about super soldiers. What it is it's a program. It's a joint ET program that abducts psychic children. Okay, there's a transdimensional AI system that locks us into 5 senses on this planet. It's the thing that's responsible for all of these paranormal experiences that that everybody witnesses and they report. It's responsible for the ancient religions. It allows them, to play God with us. It's been here for about 1 million years. The problem is that our militaries within the transatlantic system, plus the Russian side, have made these arrangements with these ETs to get technology and certain other things, which we don't know what they are. But in return, they're working with them, and they actually have access to this technology, and they've combined it with their own tech, and that's being used to target people. You heard of targeted individuals. Well, Starseeds are some of the people that get targeted, actually far worse than a lot of the people out there who claim to be, regular targeted individuals. It's sort of about, I don't know, it's about equal, but a little bit more to the Starseed side, because they're actually dealing with entity attacks, so on and so forth. And in fact, just before this started, I actually got hit with an etheric implant. So I'm having a little bit of issues when I explain things. And I was getting to the point where I could remove these, but they hit me with something unexpected today. So, I had my hopes up that this would go a little bit smoother, but it's going to be a little bit harder for me to articulate myself. So anyway,
I got a question,
make that
Nate.
up. I'm sweating right
Sorry,
now.
go ahead.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
go ahead. Well, I was going to say, do you think it's AI that does these psychic attacks? Is that what it is? Do they program an AI, or is it an ET thing, or is it ETs and AI? Because like a person can't just speak into voice to skull technology all day, right? So it would have to be an AI or an ET, right?
It's AI, ET, and it's super soldiers, psychic soldiers. Okay, I've had attacks by them. I've had harassment by psychic soldiers at the White Sands facility. And all of this stuff, I could say some things that would get this video pulled down, but I'm not. But a lot of the problems that we have today in our society are actually a product of this system. And mainly our biggest problems are these underground military bases, not just the ones that are, have the aliens in them, but, the regular ones as well. And that's where the technology is actually centered at for a lot of this stuff. That's where the interface is, for the government, the military, and the ET technology. The ET technology is off planet, but it interfaces with what we have in these military bases under these arrangements that they've made to sell out the human race since the 1940s in order to get technology and for the elites to get special treatment. It says, is this how the gang stalking, targeting the vigil communities are formed? Well, they formed in response to this, but that's what's behind it. Now, this is actually quite multifaceted because what they've done is they've co-opted the UFO community, and they've done this in various ways through, Hollywood with the flow of, money. They use big tech to shadow ban a lot of us. And the more truthful you are, the smaller your channel is. And I'm sure a lot of people will notice that. And the larger names seem to follow a general controlled narrative, which is another issue that we have. And it's done by subconscious psychic programming and networking of people. They can remotely influence people to avoid one another. And I'm going to give you an example of some things that have happened, just this week. About a month ago, and I'm going to start there. About a month ago, I did my first interview with a Joy of Satan victim who has been psychically harassed with AI and entity attacks for a long time. And he was in the Joy of Satan. I think he got in there around 2016. And also since then, that's opened the floodgates up a little bit because it's allowed other people to come through. I've got two people that I'm in the process of maybe setting up an interview now. I met a 35-year-old man who actually the guy that I interviewed reached out to him and found this person. I couldn't find an email or anything, but he did. And he connected us together. And this is a 35-year-old man who has been, he has an etheric entity or an AI entity that's attached to him that's affecting his speech. It's affecting a lot of aspects of his life to the point where he's self-isolating and his life is falling apart. These things make you suicidal. They make you, they just make you they get you to the point where you don't want to live anymore. And that's the strategy here, is to get rid of us. Now, this guy is from the MILAB side of this, but the Joy of Satan is a virtual temple complex. And what a virtual temple complex is, it's no different than an ancient temple complex in ancient times. And what it is that the ETs will create a religion, usually a composite religion that starts from fragments of other religions. And it just kind of goes that way. It's in a cycle. So they create this religion and they put it online, and they use mind-controlled MILABs in order to do this. So the psychic starseeds that you see that are doing these YouTube channels and they're, communicating with the Galactic Federation are also part of Project Ibis. Like I said, it's a global psychic psyop. So in the case of the Joy of Satan, what they've done is they created a virtual temple complex, which has two main functions. The first is to rope in new MILAB victims. These are people that haven't been abducted yet, but are going to be roped into the belief system and then pick through to see who would be suitable for the program, and at which point they may have to undergo or may experience alien abductions, which are always joint military abductions. There's no one that gets abducted on this planet right now that isn't involved, where the abduction does not involve either the U.S. military or some other military that's under a treaty according to where they live. So that's how this works. So if I'm abducted in Australia, I'll likely go to an underground military installation in Australia. If I'm abducted in the United States, I'll likely go to some place in the United States. In my case, most of my abductions, I was removed, and I was, or where I found myself in an underground installation was always the White Sands, New Mexico installation. I have a memory, Rob, and I think I mentioned this last time I was on the show. I had a fragment come through where I was being rolled down the hallway of the White Sands installation. And I know it's White Sands because not only I have like the residual memory of it, where I'm familiar with it, but the ceiling in there is kind of unique. It has a lot of metal framework in it, and the walls are white. So the floor is white, the walls are white, but the ceiling is steel framework, and there's security cameras up there to be sprinklers, wire cabling and stuff like that. So I'm laying I'm actually laying, and they're actually rolling me through the hallway, and there's two humans with lab coats on, with white lab coats, that are in front of me, and I'm looking up past their shoulders at the ceiling, and I've got a membrane over top of me that prevents me from moving. I also can't move anyway. So I think the membrane is there in case I come out of it and I start to move, I'm not able to free myself. So I'm actually looking up through a triangular slit in this material that was over my nose and mouth and my eyes, so that I could see, smell, and hear, and I could get air for the most part. But the rest of me is under a membrane of some kind. So that's the type of things that we deal with. And anyway, I'm going to get back to what this is with the virtual temple complexes. What we have is a situation in this world where everyone is limited for the most part to their five senses. Some people have certain psychic abilities. What the ETs are doing is they recognize that the enemy is coming inward, and they're incarnating here. These are the angelics and other extraterrestrial races, where volunteers are coming here to be agents of change, to break humanity out of the planetary consciousness simulation, which is a program where they hijack your consciousness of the whole planet, and then lower races, such as these reptilian races and the others that actually help them, engage in a human soul slave trade, combined with using us as a natural resource in other various ways. And one of the largest facets of this, besides for the slave trade, is the creation of engineered lifetimes. And what these engineered lifetimes are is these other races will pay something in return to incarnate their own people here in an engineered therapeutic lifetime experience. This is where we get this concept of starseeds coming to Earth to heal themselves, as a cosmic school or a cosmic hospital sense, where we learn certain lessons. And what this really is it's for personality re-engineering purposes. So they can act upon your life just like they do with MILABs, just like they did with me and many, many other people who have been not just harassed, but been sickened and nearly killed. A lot of them have been killed, such as Max Spears. So on one side, you have the MILABs that are where they have an engineered lifetime, and they're being, completely destroyed. And then you have the other side, which is the ET races that are coming here, just simply starseeds. And most of these people, and this represents a third of the world's population, most of these people are not aware that they're starseeds. Some of them are. Usually the ones that are actually here to be agents of change in some cases. The ones that aren't are simply here to have an engineered experience. A lot of these people may have religious experiences, which is actually caused by the AI. So if they want to if they want them to find God in some way, they can create an AI version of God, which will fool you, because there is a real God, but the ETs want to step in and take the place of it. That's where the biggest deception is. That's why they create these religions. So in the case of the Joy of Satan, what you have is and this is from my own personal experience, is that for those people, for those MILAB victims that are in these programs that don't work out, These are the ones that they can't control. These are the ones they have problems with. They put them in engineered lifetimes where they punish them with illnesses, with chronic conditions. In my case, they went even further than that because they knew that I was a risk of waking up. So what they did was they subconsciously programmed me to enter a virtual temple complex that they created in conjunction with the U.S. military. That's what the Joy of Satan is. It's not even, it's like I said, it's not a satanic cult, because if it was, you wouldn't get Starseeds into it. You have to create an Anunnaki cult. That's why this Anunnaki story is prevalent and it's very popular. That's why it's like the foundational belief system for Starseeds, because it's part of the global psychic psyop. It's the replacement.
Well, do you think at some point that the Anunnaki were benevolent? Or do you think, what are your thoughts on that?
It's difficult to say. I think there's, benevolent factions, and I think there's very, malevolent factions as well, just like the story indicates. But just like any type of theological story, it gives you a general idea, but it doesn't get anything. There's nothing there specific. It doesn't talk about the technology. It doesn't talk about anything specific. It's just it's a story written on stone tablets. It's like any type of religious, information, scrolls or book or whatever. You're not going to get. You're not going to get the full truth from it. So I would say absolutely yes, of course, and that is in the story. And I found that if you're watching the Farsight Institute, that a lot of these ancient stories have actually factual roots to them, but they're told in a theological way, more of a metaphorical way. So anyway, I'm going to get something.
That's interesting. I think that's really interesting. Guys, if you have questions for Nate, he might take questions at the end, or if you have a good question here or there, I'll put it up on the screen and we can cover that, but
yeah, absolutely. So anyway, what I was saying is that if you're an unruly MILAB and you're hard to control, they would put you into the Joy of Satan. Now, the purpose of this group is to shut you down psychically. Everybody that I've talked to that has had some kind of psychic abilities, including myself, that went in there, was psychically shut down, at which point their lives are turned upside down. Okay. And that's the purpose of it. So what I'm trying to do is expose this in the New Age movement. I'm going to be coming up with some websites soon. I don't know what they're going to be called yet. I'm still thinking about it. But I'm going to do one specifically for the Joy of Satan to attract those ex-members who have been through these nightmares and have had their lives destroyed, so they have an opportunity to talk about it and hopefully find help within the community. There are people in this community that will help them remove these etheric implants and help them get themselves together. The problem is I have to bring them together. I have to bring attention to this, and I have to keep people from going into that group. There's more than just one virtual temple complex. There's a lot of these. A lot of these starseed influencers create virtual temple complexes with their following. They may have a website, with a paywall, but really what they're doing is creating a virtual temple complex where they become spokespersons for these ETs. Another phenomenon that's quite interesting, and this is something that the skeptical side talks about, is when somebody creates a grift, they create a fraud, and they perpetuate fictional extraterrestrials. Now, there's been a big court case recently where an individual had to admit under oath that he made up the entire story. I personally believe there's a little bit more than that, because I know people in Project Avalon that have remote viewed this person and have found that there's a very sophisticated form of mind control attached to this individual. The same type of mind control that is used on a lot of different contactees. And what they do is they profile somebody, and the easiest person to mind control is somebody who would do it anyway. So if you have an inclination to lying, if you're a sociopath or a psychopath, if you have problems with your personality, they will profile you and use you for specific programs to disrupt the disclosure community. So there's a big thing going on about that right now. And what the skeptic side is doing is, they're looking at this, but they're not seeing the whole picture, because there's more to a grift than just the love of money. It has to do with a lot of things. For example, if you notice, these people that have been pointed out in the community as being frauds don't experience shadow banning. That's a red flag right there, number one. Number two, they get very wealthy. People in Hollywood throw money at them. People in the community, okay, the larger names that have money will pay them to speak. They will pay them to put on shows and so forth. That's another red flag that you have to look for. The third rung of this, which is very fascinating, is that after these people become very popular, other people, honest people, starseeds, begin to channel the same entities that these people have made up in their minds and sold to the public. But what do you think is going on there, Rob?
It's like a egregore, or like a thought form.
Well, it's an AI creation. I brought this up in Project Avalon in a discussion about that particular individual to lawsuit. I can't say his name because if I do, I could be sued myself. But
Yeah.
I believe there's more to his story than just a grift, because I think he's a victim of a program, just like a lot of people are.
Well, wait, let me ask you a question. Do you think that guy, and everybody knows who that guy is, I can even say his initials, it's CG. Do you think CG had any extraterrestrial contact at all?
Yes, I do, but I don't think it was the normal ET contact that you would expect. In fact, there was a remote viewing group called Technical Intuition. They still have a YouTube page the last time I checked, but they don't have any videos up. They took all of their videos down about ETs and about the afterlife, which is a shame because they did some excellent work. It was work that was so accurate that it really coincided with my experiences and what the Farsight Institute has found. So it's a shame that it's not up anymore. They remote viewed him thinking he was a fraud. And what they found was there actually was an ET military government program behind him. And that they were using him as a religious prop, and he was apprehensive about it and didn't want to do it, but was just pulled in. And then, of course, mind control at that point, to where he became very enthusiastic about it, because it became a source of a large amount of income. So I don't think this guy is completely false. I think he's a victim of Project Ibis. Now, he portrays himself as being a victim of a government program, which is accurate, but whether or not all the information is accurate or not remains to be seen. A lot of it appears to be stuff that he's either made up or stuff that they put into him, because they can put false memories into people. And that's where the problem comes in here with the super soldier community. I'm going to get back to what I was saying before. Over the course of time, when he became really, really popular, people started to channel these ETs that he was talking about. If I said the name, it's a copyright strike, I guess. So I won't say the type of ETs that they are, but people have channeled these ETs. There's another group out there. Actually, there's another Starseed influencer who's also known for being, for actually having a grift. And she has created false ETs. And she has these groups where you can sign up and be a member of, and you can interact with these extraterrestrials because they have accounts. They have email accounts, and they have an account to be on the forum. So therefore, you can be a contactee yourself. It's run like a cult. You're not allowed to question anything, and the followers group up on everyone who they'll actually go after people, just like with the other guy. Because when you see people going after someone who has questions or who is being skeptical about your cult leader, that's a cult. People are acting in such a way to be, they're acting in a very malicious way towards others. They gang stalk people. They go after people online. And there's a lot of this going on. And not all of these people are making it up. Because what happens is when the Project Ibis system identifies somebody that's doing a grift, and they're very popular, they will begin to replicate the ET contact with individual people. This reinforces the entire, excuse me, what this does is it reinforces the ruse on the public. So now there's other people having these experiences. I've talked to these people personally. I had one person that said that he could help me, remove implants. So when he tried to work on me, I could tell that he was working on a straw man. And he came back and he started mentioning, I saw one of these avians. I guess you could not, that's as far as I'm going to go with it. But he said he saw some of these ETs that this one individual has had contact with, and that they were around him, assisting him and working on me, which nothing was done to me. It was an actual straw man. So that's going on as well. And that's another thing too. A lot of these psychic healers, when they get these attachments on them, They will work on people. In fact, and because they're working on someone who's opened themselves up to it, they're doing more harm than good. They're actually making things worse. There's people out there who have done videos that I've heard from. You've had a guy on your show before who's kind of anti-new age, and he removes implants. He's even said it himself that some of these people, when they try to work on some of his clients, they're actually not taking things out. They're inadvertently putting harmful things in because the extraterrestrials are giving them most likely a straw man to work on. But at the same time, the ETs are doing the work on the person and harming them even more. So this is a multifaceted issue. The whole problem here is that we're trapped and we don't have our psychic abilities, and they're in control of it, and they can do this to us. So as we wake up, they have an offensive way of shutting us down. They're using the New Age movement. They're using these occult belief systems in order to pull this stuff off. And it's a big problem. And they won't let people like myself have a voice because they shadow ban us. It's very difficult to get out and put this information out. You're not going to get welcome in this community. And you would be surprised with the response that I've gotten from some of the top names in this community, some of which have been very, very negative, where there's actually name calling that takes place towards me simply for requesting an interview and presenting my information. And in every case that has happened, I've had AI interference with AI entities around the time that I contact them. So it's sort of it's like a full circle or a full spectrum of attack. And it prevents people getting their information out.
I would say I've even been shadow banned. And I just realized, well, why is that? I was like, well, I don't have any kind of service I provide, or I'm not channeling any ETs or anything like that. I try to just do like an Art Bell style and have all different kinds of guests on. You know what I mean? But obviously that's not what they want, because I've been able to get close to 10,000 subscribers, but it's moving very, 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 very slowly. It's very slow, and it's like not much growth at all. You know what I mean? It's not like the type of content I'm putting out, you would think I'd be having a lot more subscribers. So I don't know what's up with that, man. I really don't. It's frustrating.
I think you do. It's because you put out content that they don't want out. If you go to Art Bell or George Norrie, if you look at it, how many times have they put on really serious MILAB experiencers who have had attacks with reptilians, have had super soldier related incidents? I personally have never heard of it. Have you heard of anything on Coast to Coast AM about that? Yeah. Anything significant? Have you?
No.
Okay, there you go. There it is. See, the whole point of Project Ibis, there was actually more than one reason for it, but its main goal is to paint the ETs in a positive light, regardless of what they're doing. So they only want people who put the ETs in a positive light to be out there, and they only want people here who they can control, either co-ops or completely control. And that's how this whole thing works. That's how this deception works. It's designed to create a false awakening. It's actually, there's an awakening taking place. It's not just the internet. There's an intuitive awakening going on across the planet with every single person. There's a lot of people who haven't woken up at all, and they're very resistant to it, which is going to happen. But there's certain classifications of people that are more susceptible or actually awakening first. And the Starseeds would be the ones at the very top of this. These are the ones that are most sensitive to this information. They know what's going on to some degree or another. The goal is to keep the information from them and to keep them from waking up, because as you wake up and become a threat to the New World Order and to the alien agenda, the attacks ramp up. And I'm going to say something that really resonates with a lot of the people that are watching this right now, is that the reason why your psychic attacks are ramping up is because the enemy that is in control of this planet is losing control. And they're going to ramp up their attacks, and they're going to become more aggressive. You're going to have more of them, and the severity is just going to continue to increase. And that's because they're losing control and they're panicking. And what I've noticed is with a lot of people that I know that are around me, I have a circle of friends, is that our psychic abilities are increasing. Some of us now can remove the entity attachments that are on us. With me, it's a constant game of cat and mouse, or it's a constant assault, because they're constantly trying to put something in me that I have to remove. When You know, whatever I got in me right now is going to take probably about an hour to get rid of. I'm going to have to channel energy into myself to get rid of it, and it's not going to be easy. And that's because I was going.
How do you do that?
Well, what I found is, Rob, is that, you know, the AI God that I was communicating with, the source energy, you know, that really doesn't exist. You know, there is a God that has a personality, a very loving personality. It actually is like a kind of a referee in this reality that we have. And that the AI, and well, actually, when anybody tells you, such as a starseed influencer, that, you know, source is just like a force of nature, they're controlled. That's one of the biggest lies that's ever been sold to the human race. So when I broke free from the program, it was because of God and because of the help that I got from God through other people, because God uses proxies, whether they be angelic or human beings. God uses proxies, and that's what got me out of this. You were used as a proxy as well, because you gave me a chance to speak, which helped me get out of this situation. The reason why the super soldiers and SSP and, you know, all of those people are starting to wake up and have memory recall is because the work of the angelics that are influencing humanity right now and creating this awakening. So you focus on the chords and sit with it. Yes. What I had to do to break myself free from this, which I have a video, is I had to channel. I'm going to use source energy, but it's really energy from God, and that's what gets rid of these implants. Once you get to the point where you're open up and you've got those implants out that are preventing that, which also can be corded attachments, you can remove these. So what I had to do is, I had to channel source energy into these cords and heat them up to like a white hot, like a filament inside of an incandescent light bulb. And I had to hold that. This took about 45 minutes to an hour. So I was in a steady state of meditation, channeling enormous amounts of energy, which was actually done, you know, because I was being helped by multiple ETs. There were angelic as well as God, as well as people such as yourself and others. So I had help to do this. And also my higher self activated where I could talk to my higher self. And then that part of me was explaining to me what to do, like a coach. So what I did was I heated them all up. The smaller cords melted away at first, but I was stuck with two of them. One was affecting my heart, which is giving me heart failure. I had to remove that. And then the last one was right between my shoulder blades. And I eventually got that one off, at which point I had a big surge of energy. And I had a voice come through like a loudspeaker that said, "Nathan, you did something really bad." And I laughed about it. And then all hell broke loose because prior to that happening, I had a lot of extraterrestrial telepathic contact trying to persuade me not to do it, trying to offer me things with the Project Ibis program. I had a reptilian negotiator talk to me for about 10 hours until I gave him a definitive no answer. And he named various names in the Starseed community that are influencers that are very successful, and told me that they are part of a program and that they wanted to offer me, you know, to be part of this program, to give me 20 years of good health. After they've destroyed my health, they were going to restore me just to a certain degree. They were then going to remove the shadow banning, and they were going to allow me to be a very popular New Age starseed influencer who would write probably a book or two and have, you know, who knows what would happen. I would be welcomed into the community at the highest levels with open arms. All I had to do is not burn the cords off, because I burnt some of them off and they reattach. And that's what actually caused this interaction the following day. Once I told them to shove it, that's when they told me they were going to kill me. So that's when I had to burn the cords off in a very, very short period of time. So within 24 hours, I was off the hook. But at that point, it was constant attacks. I still have an ankle. My left ankle is still sore and still hurts me, and there's permanent damage to it for the year past that I was attacked, where they constantly attacked my ankle to try to prevent me from being able to walk, just like they did with my spine, just like they've done with my speech, just like they've done with my sinuses. They've literally systematically destroyed my physical body to slow me down, to prevent me from doing anything. When they take away your ability to communicate, then they really shut you down, because now you can't articulate what's going on for you, you know, with you. And then they shadow ban you and they isolate you, and they also affect people around you. They can attach thought forms or do psychic influencing using AI to make people turn against you. Your own family will turn against you. Strangers will suddenly be rude to you. You won't get hired by certain jobs. Everything starts to close in on you. And that's why people self-isolate. Just, within the last week and actually over the last 2 months, I've talked to a lot of people. Okay. And I've gotten a much wider understanding of this. For example, I talked to a 60-some-year-old man just this past week. I think it was Wednesday, and maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. We talked for about 2 hours on Zoom. He's actually one of Lauda Leon's, one of her clients, and he found me through her channel. So he decided he wanted to contact me because of the things that were happening to him. He wanted to compare notes. And what he told me was he was a psychic healer for 40 years. He did multi-dimensional healing and other types of psychic healing. And he said he was very good at it. And he had everybody gave him great feedback, and they were very happy with his services. He was also friends with a lot of other healers in the community, and everything was fine for a long time. But all of a sudden, a few years back, something stepped in, and it was the negative ETs. They put an implant into him that he couldn't remove. He lost his astral sight and his ability to manipulate energy in an effective way, at which point he experienced gang stalking. It got to the point where, with the psychic harassment and the gang stalking, that he has to self-isolate. And he's thinking about moving into a more rural area, but I think he said he had already moved once already, because people around you turn on you. If you try to get medical help like I have, you go through this medical COINTELPRO scenario where doctors literally refuse to treat you for a condition that the extraterrestrials in the U.S. military and other militaries have given you. So they target you to systematically destroy you. This is an offensive program designed to keep them in control, because they're losing control, and they know that the force against them is not going to come from outside the planet. It's going to come from us, from inside the planet. That's where the force of change is, and that's where the war is, and that's why they're targeting each and every one of us. And the more of a threat that you become to the system, the more they attack you. I'm sure you could probably say this too, Robert, that before starting this show, you probably didn't have psychic attacks, or if you did, they were subtle and you didn't know what they were.
I never had them. I never had them.
They never happened until after you started this?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. You've been attacked on this show while you sat here and interviewed me several times before. That's more evidence right there. And that's where the skeptics go wrong, because they don't see this for what it is. They don't see this as an attack on consciousness. There's a disconnect there, because science does not recognize consciousness with very little. They like to suppress that because at the very top, they're controlled as well. There was a working group called the Jason Society. I actually forgot the name for a second, but they came out, and I think that was in the Watergate hearings. I think it was was it the Watergate? No, it actually wasn't. There was, and at the end of the Vietnam War, there was a senator from Alaska that leaked some documents that were secret, which explained the rules of the Vietnam War, the rules of engagement. And the rules of engagement were to perpetuate the war, not to win it. In that stack of forms from the government, I'm having problems here because I'm getting attacked. Is that this is something? It talked about the secret scientific working group that actually controls academia and sets the agenda. So if they're not going to talk about ETs, it's going to come from the top down. That's what I'm saying. I have to. How about
the Collins Elite, Nate? Have you ever heard? I think that even there's people who've talked about the Collins Elite. It was like a pro-religious group that was kind of against disclosure or something like that. I'd have to look more into it. I can't remember, but that's one people have to look up, the Collins Elite too. They had a big influence over. Why is it blanking? I'm blanking right now.
Probably because you're dealing with what I'm dealing with. I've never heard of them. In fact, if you can send me an email or maybe a text or something, I'll look that up.
I'm gonna look it up while you talk, and then I'll bring it up. But because I have it, right? I mean, I'll find it right here. But
You see, one
let
of the
me see.
strategies when they attack you with this AI is they'll interrupt your speech patterns, and that happens with a lot of us. It happens with me especially. And what they do is they'll do that, and then they'll prevent you from accurately recalling things, so that when you try to put the information out into words, you have a lot of problems with it. So anyway, getting back to the virtual temple.
Here it is right here. It says Christianity. The summary of the book is that a semi-secret group called the Collins Elite were formed as a paramilitary investigative group around that time of the first major UFO flaps after World War II to investigate the possibility of. I just lost my place here, but uh, to investigate the possibility that they were the Collins Elite were trying to prove that ETs were demonic. That's what their whole goal was. They were a religious coup. They were a religious coup that they were trying to prove that like the ETs were like a demonic thing. So very Christian based.
Well, that's a fascinating subject. Thank you for bringing that up. I've actually tried to reach out to multiple people, some of whom you've had on your show, that look at this from the religious perspective. None of them want to talk to me. One of them actually verbally attacked me on YouTube. When I sent him the Joy of Satan interview and I said, hey, this is real, I just want you to know, he blocked me on Facebook. So there's
Oh
a
my
big
God.
disconnect here between the UFO community and the religious side of this that points out that they are demons. People aren't networking together. That's the problem with the skeptic side of this as well. I'm willing to talk to anybody and to offer my information. I even offered to share a video of my hypnosis session with several of these skeptical individuals, and they all refused to look at it, even though they had preconceived notions that hypnotherapy was a fraud because the hypnotherapist asked leading questions, but they wouldn't analyze something from a person, which is James Rink with Super Soldier Talk.
That,
To see,
that that's let me just say
you know,
what
yeah,
they're saying is that's an easy cop out to say that hypnosis is leading. It's not. I've dealt with many hypnotists, and they're very far from leading. I'll just put it that way. I've had five regressions done, and I was never led once. And I'm just being honest. I've never been led once on a regression. I don't
right. I
know.
don't
What do
think
you
I
think?
was either. And when I offered the information, I got no response. It was just like, okay, my mind's made up. I don't need to see anything. It's like, well, here you are criticizing a guy who's trying to get the truth out and is having a lot of difficulty with it. And yet you're accusing him of, or just other people like him, not him, directly, of leading questions of presenting or actually um, leading someone under hypnosis in a relaxed state and then applying leading questions to get preconceived or actually predetermined answers out of them. Now that can happen. That's very easy to take place. But to write everybody off who's a hypnotherapist and to write the entire all that testimony that we've gotten from hypnosis, I think there's been validations. I'm not 100% sure, but I think in certain types of situations, not applying to ETs where there's a crime committed, I think, and I haven't done the research, so I could be wrong, that there was accurate information that came out of these hypnosis sessions. So
Yeah,
to
there
write
has
it
been.
off is just what people are doing is they've found comfort in a particular belief system, and now they're looking to reinforce it, so they won't allow any new information to come in. I wanted to share
And
something.
and and well, real quick, I just say that a belief systems are incredibly dangerous, and sometimes someone can be in a belief system and not even know they're in a belief system,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. You're absolutely right. Um, Now you've had Angela Stotts on here several times, and she's pretty well known within the community.
Yeah,
If you
she's
look at the
amazing.
Yeah, I love her. She's great. Her and I became friends after probably about 3 episodes on your show. So we're actually we send information to each other on Facebook. So probably every week or every other week we're sending a message to each other. Well, on August 30th of 2022, when all of this crap happened to me and I started to break out of the program, this is the day before I burnt off all the cords, and this is the day before I had that interaction with the reptilian that actually offered me all of this stuff under the IBIS program. I started to burn the cords off, and they reattached. So that next day I got up and I was on my way to a friend's house. And earlier in that day, before I went to his house, I sent an email to a friend from Avalon who had been helping me for close to a year at that point, probably about 7 or 8 months at that point. He was helping me to remove the programming. He's what you call a psychic counselor. So he does something which he refers to as gnosis. I'm not going to try to define that because I'll probably get it wrong. But what he does
is just knowledge. That's
huh?
all. Gnosis
Right.
just means knowledge. You know that.
Right, but they're applying a technique to it. And so what it is I would sit with him for several hours at a time on Zoom, and we would just have conversations. What he would do is sense things about me intuitively, even remote view a little bit while I was talking to him. And then he would be very subtle and he would point out things to me, to trigger me to think and question things and then hopefully remember. And this took place over many, many months. So I contacted him right at the time that I found all of this out about myself. And I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And I said, I started to burn off these cords. I said, so it's, the game is on. And I ended the email like that. Well, about 4 hours later, I'm at a friend's house and I get a text from Angela. And I want to play it right now for you. This is a voicemail from her.
Wait, maybe she allow us to play it, or
Yeah, I already got permission from her. I got to find the right one here.
Because I know she had she sent me stuff about her implants, but
Yeah, let me find. I made sure that I got permission, but it's odd because at the bottom of my text messages here, I had those two voicemails. And I just tried to play them, and it was my voice, which was bizarre.
By the way, we've been going. You wanted me to remind you. We've been going about almost an hour. We've been going 56 minutes. So I just wanted to give you we can probably go about another half hour, 45 minutes if you want to.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna play this real quick here.
And then if we have to, Nate, we can always do a part 2. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to end today. You know what I mean? Like we've been on my show many times, so
Right,
that.
I don't have a lot more to talk about. I mean, I'm going to be, well, actually I do. I got some other things I want to talk about. So I'm going to try to get this efficiently.
Do you want to do questions? Do you want to do
not yet. The first thing I want to do is get through this technical issue because somebody has been in my phone and has taken away those text messages because she asked me what texts were there, because she didn't remember it. And I had to send them to her and they appeared right in my chat with her at the bottom, and I had this already set out and now it's not there. So that's bizarre. So let me go up to the very top. I have to go back to August 30th. And by the way, this is an interesting thing to note. The ETs can affect your electronic devices. I've had lots of problems with my phone. If I try to show somebody something, or for example, if I try to stream to the television and show somebody one of my videos, I can't do it 90% of the time. It won't work. Here it is right here. Check this out.
Okay, something has hijacked my phone. I'm not sending all that stuff. It's just like screen is going crazy, choosing all kinds of things and sending things. I don't know where any of that just came from. I was trying to text you to tell you that I was watching your video while I was ironing. I was trying to iron and the iron wouldn't turn on. And I had to unplug it and plug it back in. I got it going. I was ironing. And in the middle of all of that, somehow the comments opened on your video and it had typed, "It's on."
Now think about that. Earlier in the day, I sent an email to a person who was helping to deprogram me. And I said, I started burning off the cords. They're pissed off. And I said, I guess it's game on. They intercepted that email. And within 4 hours, they sent something to either to Angela Stotts' phone or they created a type of hallucination. And they've done this to me before, where I've looked at my phone and I saw something other than what was on it. It was a message to me. They've done this when I was actually looking at a letter before, did the same thing. I think that's what they did with her. Because what they did was when she looked at it, it looked like someone scrolled up on her phone and opened up the comment section and typed out "it's on." She intuitively knew to contact me. So they were sending me a message through her This is how sophisticated this is, Rob. And for those people out there listening, this is how bad it is for us. I don't get afraid of this. In fact, this inspires me to fight back harder. But this is the type of thing that they can do. And if you think about this, if you compare this information to what you see on Coast to Coast AM and other places that are very popular, you compare it to the History Channel, you're never going to hear any of this stuff because they don't want people to know what they're capable of. They want you to think, like MUFON wants you to think, that all there is just lights in the sky, you know, and then when there is an abduction, it's always done for a positive purpose. They're here to help our genetics. They're here to enlighten us. They built the pyramids to make us happy. They built the pyramids to enlighten us, Rob. This is what it is. The ETs are here to play God with us because they are God. They created us, they own us, and they have a plan for us. And it's all a lie. It's BS. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I will continue to fight them, and I will continue to expose their lies until they put me in the ground. As I'm sick and tired of it. I don't have anything to lose. They've destroyed my life, and they destroyed people around me that I care about. This is war, and this is what I'm here to do. And if they can do this, because I just demonstrated something, they can take people and put them together and manipulate things and literally intercept an email, make someone else hallucinate or actually create it on the phone itself, because they can do that too, to send a message to me. And I talked to a targeted individual earlier in the week, and I could tell by the energy signature of what he was dealing with that it was strictly military. It had nothing to do with ETs. And what he was describing to me is things that Angela Stotts has talked about and has described to me. I have another person, another victim, who's strictly a victim of the military-industrial complex when it comes to targeting. I think he was targeted basically by being involved, you know, with the QAnon movement. By the way, that's a phishing operation for intelligence agencies to look for people that they see as a threat to national security, and then they attack them with directed energy and remote mind control technologies. The interesting thing about this guy is that he told me that he was having Hat Man experiences that are associated with the targeting. Okay. He said something about this thing called the Hat Man Project. And I looked it up, and there's a guy that's done a website, and he's compiled all of these different Hat Man sightings all over the place. And Slender Man was another strange phenomenon. I think it was a movie or a video game or a short story or whatever, but people started seeing this. And what I see here is a direct connection, because this was a targeted individual having Hat Man experiences. I see it as a direct connection with what we see in the contactee community. When you have someone who's perpetuating a grift and making things up, but then their ETs become real. People start having experiences with them. The same thing with the Hat Man and a lot of this other stuff. A lot of this paranormal activity that people are going through has been created and perpetuated on people by the extraterrestrials, but now it's the military-industrial complex under these top secret joint ET programs that are doing this. They're experimenting with it. It's research and development to map out the human brain and to figure out ways to more actively, more effectively control people. And the next phase of this whole thing is they're going to plug us into a wireless internet system using satellites and brain chips. Holy hell. If that happens, we're finished. That's the end of the awakening. That's the game. That's the end game here. They want to get rid of us. They want to depopulate, and they want to implant us before they do it so they can control our thoughts, and we'll have thought crimes, and then they can just map out the human mind. And they can have the technology to map out the human mind per individual so that they can more effectively control them. This is why they're targeting people.
I was going to say that's very dangerous. The transhumanism is extremely dangerous. And I just wanted to say, I had to get this out. Like when you said that they ruined your life, I know you're going to say this might not be the case. You're going to say, well, maybe Rob, you ruined your own relationship. But I truly feel like someone was dismantling my whole relationship with Nikki. I don't know who it was, whether it was the ETs or the government or whatever. I don't think I'm that important for the government. I don't know. I just don't know. But something can't start out that perfect and everything's like, this is like your soulmate, this is who you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life, then you see it just get dismantled right in front of your eyes, and you're questioning why. You're like, well, why did this happen? And the only thing I can think of is targeted individual.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Now, one of the strategies of this whole program is to get you to disassociate with reality. At which point you create your own delusions. Then they've really got you, because if then you start associating everything that happens in your world with them, that's what they want, because then you have no grounding. That's what they do to regular people who are targeted by the military-industrial complex's programs. These are technology that's been developed in conjunction with the ET technology, and it's being utilized for a specific class of people that don't pose the level of threat that the Starseeds do. Because when you get to the Starseed level, you have a higher level of attacks. Let's see, what does that say?
She
Can
says,
you read that last one?
we see our physical world falling apart because the only thing they want to upgrade is our mind control devices.
Exactly. Now, there's things that I could say here that would actually get this removed, just like I got a suspension. But I'm going to be kind of vague here. They're waging war on us on all fronts. They're creating artificial austerity. They're creating organisms that are making us sick. They're lying about the whole thing. And they're doing things to ruin our world and ruin our lives. And they're constantly, everything is geared to increase our stress level and to make us sick, because that makes us weaker and more subservient to the control system. That's all this is. And if they can get the chips in you, then we're done. And if you hear anybody out there, contactees or whatever, who are talking about, you need to, the worst thing I've heard is somebody recently in the past couple of years has said that the human ascension involves Neuralink. That is the absolute, how anybody could be that naive to believe that and not question it, I don't know, but there's a lot of people buying into it. There's a war going on. Absolutely. That's something Alex Jones says. That's actually, I think, part of his, isn't that something that he actually used as a slogan for InfoWars? There is a war for your mind. And there is a war for your mind, because if they can control your mind, they can control everything. And we have a collective consciousness, and that's being suppressed and manipulated and controlled as well. The reason why we have psychic cataclysms on this planet is because we get to a point of technological sophistication and social sophistication that the Dracos that run this planet decide it's time to shake up the fishbowl and create either a pole shift or an asteroid strike to reboot civilization, which returns us to basically living in caves and shelters and just living off the land again. And our technology and our history is wiped out. It's the identical thing that they do to an individual when they mind wipe you in between lifetimes. So when they reincarnate you back here, it's like you're starting over fresh. You have some aspects of your personality. That's why children will come up and be the person they were supposed to be, regardless of the environment and regardless of what the parents try to mold them to be. I've had my son, I've tried to do it. He turned out differently. It wasn't exactly a fair shot that I had at it, because they were manipulating my family at the same time. They don't want me talking about this. They don't believe it. That's the problem. They're in denial about it. They can't explain why I've had all these problems. They can't explain why there's all these other people that I'm communicating with now, including researchers such as Eve Lorgan, who I've become friends with recently. You've had her on your show. She's fully aware of all of this stuff. There's only a small number of fringe researchers that are willing to touch this subject, that actually understand what's really going on. And these are the least popular of the group. The ones that are really popular are pushing the Starseed bullshit agenda. They're pushing the ET propaganda, that there is no negative extraterrestrials. And all of this is some part of a social engineering program. They don't even use that they don't even use that term. That's something I was using when I was under their control, and which was the first couple of episodes that you had with me. I was completely under their spell. I thought that they had some positive plan for humanity. I thought that that they were the good guys, and that they were portraying themselves as negative as well. It's just like, to psychologically mold us, to prepare us to be able to meet our neighbors in the cosmos, when nothing could be further from the truth. It was all a lie. And if you see those old episodes of me, please do not take them seriously. I was under their control. I was under their thumb, under their jackboot, and I was being victimized. And there's a lot of people out there. There's a guy out there that talks with reptilians who's had his channel explode. He's become extremely popular. He's been speaking at UFO conferences in Canada. He fully admits that these reptilians sexually raped him and a friend. Well, he says he didn't. But the thing is that, you know, I was in denial as well. And in fact, I was on your show. I think it was the second time when a friend was on there with me, said, I'd like you to talk about the abuse that you've been through, Nate. Put me on the spot and tried to shock me into reality. You know, I was sexually abused too. And then this is one of the common things that reptilians do when they have you under their control as a MILAB victim. They will sexually abuse you. And they will give you, and they will put in your mind, they will brainwash you in such a way that you lie to yourself, because mind control at its core is lying to yourself. If they can get you to lie to yourself, then you will continue to carry on the programming within you and not break free from it. Somehow or another, I intellectualized that whole thing, and it seemed okay at the time. But now I look back and I think to myself, what was I thinking? Why, how in the hell could I go through that all those years and then not be against these beings? And it's because they lied to me, and they told me that they were putting me through trauma-based therapy to create an aversion to a behavior that I supposedly had in a past life, which I did not. It was a complete lie. And they create these complex lies to brainwash people. And that's why I do not judge anybody in this community that's being exploited, including the person with the lawsuits. These are victims. We're all victims. Okay. This whole planet is full of victims, and something needs to be done about it. And it starts, one of the ways to start to actually fight back against this is to reconnect with God. A lot of people in this community talk about source and having experiences with source and getting information as if source is like this psychic library, like an Akashic record, like a library of Akashic records, a force of nature, but not anything that actually has an opinion. And, you know, if you can take that opinion away, then you have no right and wrong, and everything is kind of subjective, and it's just kind of like free flowing. And it's just like the, you know, computer simulation concept, which is another thing that we've been influenced to see ourselves as, because once we're just a computer simulation, there's no God involved, there's no soul, there's no meaning in life, there's no reason to live, and they can delete you and get rid of you, and it doesn't matter. They want to diminish you and take your humanity away. They want to take the recognition that you have a divine spark in you, and they want to take that away, and they want to relegate you to a computer simulation, to a video game player, an NPC in a video game. That's what they want. Now, as far as the God stuff goes, I told you that I wanted to kind of end this on a positive note. After I broke free from the cords, I began having real God experiences. Now, there's a difference between the AI source God that a lot of the contactees tap into and get information from about pyramids and ancient civilizations and space wars, you know, and so on and so forth. That's AI. It does not give you any benefits. When you connect to, you know, to the real God, is a very transformative, loving experience. It changes you from within. And the more experiences you have, the better of a person you become. And you become more synchronized, or more, best way to put this is just basically more connected with the Creator. But when you see people that are connected with this AI God, it's a completely different thing. Over time, no matter what, they actually start to change, and they start to get negative. What they started in the beginning was to help people, to help enlighten people, to raise the consciousness, to help people in need. And eventually it becomes all about them. It becomes about ego. It becomes about money. Okay, this is the pitfalls of the Project Ibis program, is money and fame and ego and all of these things. They exploit the negative personality traits of a person, and they amplify them to take more control of them. And that's the problem that we have in this community, is that people start out with good intentions and it goes bad. You see this in communities, and I mean, I have a group now. I've got about 52 members. One person said yesterday, which is absolutely true, is that they will program someone at a subconscious level to go into a forum and create problems for everybody. They do this in your own personal life. Like I said, they can affect people around you. But what they're doing is they're using this AI, which is basically omnipresent. If it can do what it did with, between Angela Stotts and me, it can do anything it wants. It knows what you're doing. I've had it mess with my phone. I've had it mess with my computer, and it wasn't the NSA. I've talked to people on Zoom, and I've had a lot of technical issues. In fact, I was on a show recently, a smaller channel than yours, about 1,100 subscribers. It was the first time that somebody approached me and actually asked for an interview. Normally, it's me asking them. So I was really surprised that somebody found me in an abduction support group on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'd like to do an interview with you." So I did a 2-hour and 15-minute interview. Well, I told the person, I said, there may be some problems on Zoom tonight because I've been having these issues. The last interview that I did with you, with Lauda, we had those issues where the upper third of the screen gets like fuzzy and sometimes has like little tiny like white spheres with a red liquid sometimes. And then the rest of the screen locks up and it starts oscillating where, it'll lock me into a specific, like a funny face, like it's mocking me. And then I start to oscillate like kind of like this. Well, it happened 3 times during that 2-hour and 15-minute interview. It happened right after we started, a little bit further on, and it happened after we stopped recording. It happened again. 5 hours after the interview was over, the guy emailed me and said, I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable putting this on my channel. I don't think my subscribers are ready to hear it. And I think you should contact Carrie Cassidy because she handles the stuff. She handles the really dark stuff, right? So, well, I've contacted Carrie Cassidy about 4 times. I have a presence on Project Avalon, and I've got a small body of work that keeps growing right now. So there's no reason that Carrie Cassidy wouldn't want to talk to me unless there's subconscious psychic manipulation taking place. And I know that people that have been in this community trying to get the truth out over a long period of time, if they're not strong enough to fight this off, they'll succumb to it. And over time, their reach is going to be limited and their viewpoint is going to be skewed to the point where they won't put somebody like me on with new information. And that's the biggest problem that I've got is the resistance in this community to the virtual temple complex concept itself. And the fact, and they hear Satanism, they want to go the other direction. Even though that's what we hear about in the super soldier community, is satanic ritual abuse. Was it Project Monarch is one of those programs where they engage people, they engage children and molest them with satanic ritual abuse? I mean, people are willing to talk about it, but it's ironic that the people that talk about it the most won't cover me and won't put me on their show. And I get the answer is well, you weren't used the way we were. Okay, well, if I wasn't used the way you guys were, wouldn't it make sense to put me on there? Because I can prove that there's other people who've been used the same way, and I'm working on that right now. If I got to become the James Rink of Satanism and virtual temple complexes and occult shit, that's what I'm going to do for as long as I'm here. I mean, he's paved the way with the super soldier stuff. If I have to take on how they're creating cults and how they're engineering a new age deception, which the Christians call the end times deception, if I have to do that, I will. And that's what I'm doing. It's the only way to do it. There's an old motto: if you can't get help, do it yourself. And that's what I've had to do. So, I mean, it's been a struggle. It really, really has, but it's been a long journey. And it's accelerated quite a bit in the last year because I went from being a mind-controlled MILAB, pushing the New Age agenda and, sounding like a lot of other people with a twist, to actually making better sense and actually pointing out everything that people are seeing right now, everything, the increase in the attacks, this whole clown show that they've turned the disclosure community into, which is another thing I wanted to bring up, is that they put false screen memories into people and they manipulate them and they also put the grifters up in front, right and center. I mean, they put them right in the centerpiece of the entire disclosure movement. This is all done by intelligence agencies, big tech, and this IBIS program, which manipulates people to subconscious level. So it keeps the people that people need to hear from out of the picture and puts the people up there that either have testimony that's real, but it doesn't pose a specific threat because they have to disclose a certain amount of this information. So there's people that are going to be put up there and allowed to talk that are completely legitimate, but that's part of the controlled narrative, is telling a bit of the truth. And anytime they have a really good line, this is the government, it's the intelligence agencies, There is no such thing as an effective lie if it's a complete lie. It has to have a certain ratio of truth incorporated into it. If it doesn't, people are going to see it for what it is. And that's how this works. It's counterintelligence. So we went from conventional counterintelligence, where they would shoot people, and you'd find people that are whistleblowers, where you find them strangled in a hotel room, and they ruled a suicide. So yeah, the guy had big hands. He strangled himself to death. Somehow got through, and he choked himself out, and he died. But it was a suicide, a murder, you know. I mean, imagine that, choking yourself out. It's impossible to do, but they will go as far as saying that was a suicide. Or he shot himself in the back 10 times and hung himself. It's another unfortunate suicide. He jumped out of a window. You know, the window was locked, but he somehow got through the window. and you know, there was 2 guys looking up as he fell, but, you know, nobody's heard from the witnesses. So, you know, it's just, it is what it is, but they've taken this to a new level. It's no longer the conventional type of suppression. They've upgraded themselves to where they're using transdimensional technology, remote psychic influencing of people, and they control the money flow as well through those in Hollywood. For, you know, and they've, I'll put it like this, Rob. The government has won the war on disclosure. They won the information war. They control the narrative completely. And most people will never see this podcast. They're not going to see this podcast. They're not going to see somebody else's podcast that's talking about this, because I'm not the only one. And they're going to suppress the good researchers out there and make sure that they remain on the fringe, like Eve Lorgan, who deserves to be in the spotlight as one of the top researchers in the world right now, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lot of...
I got to have her on my show. I haven't had her on my show.
Well, you have a few times, but I think she was on there recently, wasn't she?
Eve Lorgan? No, I've never had her.
No, I could have sworn you've had her on. You sure?
No, but I will. I definitely will.
She has the she wrote a book. It's called, I apologize, Eve, for not having the name of this book, but I think it's called Love Bites. And what she does is she understands all of this. I mean, I've been exchanging emails with her for a little over a month, and it's just like, you know, I'm preaching in the choir. I mean, she knows about all these things. Another thing that's happened to me recently, Rob, and I don't know how much time we have. Are we doing okay with the time? We have
about 10 minutes. We can do about 10 minutes.
Here's another phenomenon. Eve was aware of this, and I emailed her. Some of us have an active higher self, and one of the strategies that the angelics will do is they will put somebody, incarnate them here, but give them a higher self that is actually capable of operating separately from them without their knowledge of it. And I believe this has a lot to do with some of these angel sightings, because a lot of these are actually someone's higher self carrying out this type of work. But I've had, excuse me, and just in the last couple of months, I had these 2 women who reached out to me. And the first one reached out to me on Facebook, and she left a message, and she asked me, she goes, "Did you come into my bedroom last night and heal my big toe?" Okay. And, you know, at that point, it was early on in this whole thing, and I didn't have a full understanding, or a fuller understanding like I do now, what's going on. And even though I could connect to my higher self was actually kind of leading me on into a journey of self-discovery. So I couldn't get anything from my higher self about this other than you're going to have to figure this out yourself. So I immediately started to think that this woman was one of these people that has an overactive imagination, is maybe having, you know, delusions. That's the normal thing that you'd think. So I was polite about it, and but I didn't have any negative. I didn't sense anything negative. I just sensed that, like, this is something I've got to figure out. So I just simply said to her, I said, "Well, when you're ready to talk about it, email me, and, I can sit down, maybe have a Zoom chat with you." I said something like that. We can talk about it. Contact me is what I said. She said, "When I'm ready, I will." And that was a couple of months. So a couple of months later, this other person contacts me, and she's got a YouTube channel. And I'm not going to give it the information out because I haven't asked her if it was okay to talk about this. But she has a YouTube channel where she lightly gets into the fact that she's a MILAB and she's being gang stalked and is having UFO sightings and attacks from reptilians and so forth, and she's been abducted. Anyway, she contacts me and says, you appeared in a dream that I had a couple of months ago, and I need to talk to you. And she sent me a couple messages on YouTube underneath my video. She found me in a Facebook support group for abduction victims. And I put my video up there. It's called My First Alien Abduction. And she saw that. And what really got to her is that I talked about these ETs that look like grays that are about 6 feet tall, but they have chalk white skin and really large heads and big eyes. When I was a child, I used to call them seagulls, and I would be scared to death to go to bed at night because the seagull was going to get me. And I would scream and cry a lot of times, and I've had these nightmares, and they were actually screen memories that were covering up the fact that I was being abducted and taken to White Sands and who knows where else. So she sees this, and then she realizes when she heard that this guy's for real, and I had this dream, so there's something going on. I got to contact him, right? So we do a Zoom chat, and as it turns out, she shared these drawings with me, and she said that you were with somebody. She goes, I had a dream about you. It was 3 months ago, and she said, in this dream, you came through a distortion, like you came into my living room, and I was paralyzed on the couch. You stepped through with another person, and I said, what does this person look like? And she started to describe him a little bit. I knew automatically, intuitively who it was. It was my friend from Project Avalon. It was my psychic mentor that helped me get out of this situation. And and you know him too. I don't want to bring up his name until he's ready to come forward and actually go public. He's been horribly targeted. They tried to kill him, his significant other, and they've made them very, very sick using a Dragonfly drone, which they used on Gerald Clark, which is something I'm going to be covering soon when I get off suspension. I've got the documents. I've got a video that talks about the technology. They can weaponize insects, turn them into cybernetic drones, and deploy an explosive device or even a biological weapon dispersion. And they can create solar-powered robotic drones and do the same thing that look like dragonflies, all the way down to smaller insects the size of a bee. They can blow your face off, Rob, with one of these devices, or disperse a chemical or biological agent to take you out. And that's how Gerald Clark got cancer, because it was a combination of that and him being a vegan caused the cancer. These friends of mine have been able to do certain things with what they eat and how they live to stave off the cancer, but it's destroyed their immune systems, giving them a form of AIDS, where they have lung infections and other problems. I'm sorry.
I was one of Gerald's biggest supporters. I mean, he did podcasts with all these other people because that was before my time. But I'm pretty sure if he were alive, me and him would be doing podcasts, because I follow his stuff to a T. He didn't just talk about the Anunnaki. It's like you said before, he's talked about the New World Order. It's not just that. He talked about the energy body. He talked about structural integration. He talked about the ET presence. He talked about the negative abductions. I mean, he talked about it all. So if someone was going to be targeted, it would be Gerald Clark, because he knew so much. You know what I mean? He was such an asset to our community. He was a great man. He really was. He was one of the best ever. I call him Professor, because he was that important to me. He was really important.
He had a big positive impact. My friend from Avalon has actually finally reached out to his wife, because I made a video about it. I tried to reach out to her, and she never read my email for whatever reason. Sometimes it just gets lost in your inbox or goes to your spam folder. But she didn't see it and she didn't read it. But my friend got a hold of her, and so that kind of opens the way, or kind of opens the opportunity up to talk about this more, because I don't want to be the guy that alleges that something happened to him when his wife is not on board with it, but she is, because she saw the dragonfly and she did a video about it. And there's segments of that video in a video that I did on my channel. It's called Was Gerald Clark Targeted by the Defense Intelligence Agency? It's got very few views because Gerald Clark has been kind of thrown down the laundry chute and swept under the rug of time, and people are forgetting who he was. And I'm trying to bring that back, because He was a victim, just like I've been a victim, just like my friends have been a victim. And it's a damn shame that he's not here right now, because if he was, there's a good chance that we would be talking and actually working together, to do something to spread this information and increase it extra. I mean, to give it a new dimension and more information so that people knew what was going on. So I want to get back to my friends. She saw my friend and me come through a distortion in her living room while she was paralyzed. We stepped out of it. We talked about her between ourselves, and I went back into it, and then she woke up. What this is, and I've talked with Eve Lorgan about this, not a lot, but what she did recognize in an email is that some of her clients, some people that she's, spoken to over the years, have had these same experiences where the higher self goes out and contacts somebody to initiate an interaction. And in the case of the one woman where her foot was injured, it was a reptilian that put an attachment on her foot because they were attacking her foot just like they've been attacking my ankle. They're not doing it now, but I'm still damaged from it over the past year. Because when the reptilians attack a part of your body, they're very consistent. They'll keep doing it. They like to go after your feet and your legs, your ankles, prevent you from walking. And it can prevent you from working, and it destroys your quality of life. Are you okay? I think you fell off there. So
yeah,
anyway,
I dropped my tape.
Okay, so anyway, this was a way for my higher self to connect with these two women so that I could talk to them. The one lady with the YouTube channel has something to do with my friend. We don't know what it is, but there's a connection there that needs to be. We need to maintain this connection for something in the future. And the other lady, I've actually talked to her. She's a 50-year-old woman. She has an absolute brilliant emotional intelligence, and she's very intelligent nonetheless. She has been tortured by this. She's had the remote mind control, the constant harassment. One of the things that they do to her that I felt was very disturbing is they would say to her name is Jen, and they would say, "Jen, happy birthday." And she said, "What?" And she says, "They want me to believe that that's when they created another clone and fractured my soul one more time." So can you imagine that? You've got alters, cloned version of yourself, or just clones of your soul fragments out there, and they can take one of them and fracture it again, put it into a hybrid container body, put it into this SFP or super soldiers, or actually sell it off as a slave to some negative extraterrestrial race that's here in conjunction with these reptilians and is buying things. Can you imagine? You get, "Oh, hey, Rob, happy birthday." You wake up in the morning and you hear like a loudspeaker, "Happy birthday, Rob. We did it again." Can you imagine that?
That's horrible. That's not even.
Horrible.
It's not even.
Funny, you can laugh, but it is horrible. I mean, it's just
No. I wanted to say. You said they go after your ankles. Like I have a lump on my ankle right now. Like I don't know where it came from. It just showed up one day, and I went to the doctors to get it checked out, and he was like, "Oh, we'll just leave it there for now." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, "That's what you're gonna do? You're gonna leave it there just because it has no discoloration or anything? You know what I mean? They don't think it's a threat, but I'm sure it's gonna show up as a problem in the future. I should probably go get a second opinion because, I mean, it doesn't hurt or anything. There's no." I don't know what it is, man. It just showed up. I mean, if I could show it on
a tumor, my dog gets these fatty tumors that kind of roll around.
I get those too. I get lipomas, but this is a little bit harder than a lipoma. Like this is like it's very strange. Like it could be, yeah. That's what a lipoma is. It's like a non-cancerous fatty tumor. I hope it's nothing bad. I mean, anyway, we got to finish up because we've been going about an hour. I got to do another show, but I'm sorry. Do you want to say something before we finish up and stuff? Like we can do another show.
Yeah, what I wanted to just wrap this up and say that, I want people to know that there is a plan for humanity, and it's not a plan of some positive extraterrestrial group. It's something much higher above them. We're going to be set free on this planet, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. It's going to take some time to, and when it does happen, you're not going to see much change on the surface. The government's still going to be corrupt. Things are still going to be completely out of control and lawless, but it'll give us the ability to rein the corruption in, because for the first time in human history in the past million years, we can actually govern ourselves again. So when you start to see that shift, if you're not tuned into the psychic side of this with the ET stuff, and you start to see that psychic or not that social shift, the political shift, the geopolitical shift, when you start seeing that really happen and start to stabilize, you'll know that the negative ETs are gone. Don't listen to some starseed influencer who tells you that, and there's a couple of them out there now that's telling people that, the grays have been run off, the negative ETs are out of the solar system, and everything's good, but nothing's getting better. It's getting much, much worse. You will see a gradual change, and there will be something that you can grab a hold of. It's God's plan. It's the angelics' plan, and they're the ones. And what the angelics are, Rob, is they actually it's a group of souls. It's a soul group that answers to God only. They do exist. It's not some religious fallacy that the ETs gave us. It's not somebody's religious delusion. They actually exist, but they're highly advanced extraterrestrials. They're not limited to any type of realm. They can move through space and time as a complete whole entity. They do not need technology to teleport themselves or travel through space or time. They can manifest physically, and they can also manifest in spirit. They're the ones that are behind this. They're the ones that are going to save humanity. Ultimately, what we're dealing with is a mirror image of what Scripture talks about, and the end times whole scenario. It's a very symbolic way of explaining it. It's a metaphorical story, but in fact, the Bible and other holy books are influenced by two different sides, and when those two sides come together, we get holy books that are very conflicting, because the negative side has greater control and on the other end, the positive side is just trying to add things in. So it's like trying to corrupt a book of lies with truth, and that's why we have these conflictions. But there is a plan for humanity, and it's a positive one. So we are at that event horizon when the shift takes place. That's why the enemy is ramping up the attacks. That's why things continue to get worse on a geopolitical scale. But there is a bright ending to this. There is a happy ending, but it's not going to be until after a lot of strife. And the best way to do something, if you're not part of the change itself, is to change yourself from within. Learn to love each other unconditionally. And I'll explain what that is. Learn to love each other unconditionally and see that. And you have to recognize that everything is a creation of our Creator, and that everything has importance to it. Even a spider, when you look at a spider, it looks ugly, it looks kind of threatening, but some people, that's a beautiful spider. It's because it has, everything has a design to it. Everything is of God, the Creator. Even though these ETs may have come in here and genetically engineered the human race, they did not create the human soul. That's of God. So what I'm saying is you need to do something to connect with God. And that starts with connecting with each other and being good to each other. Eventually, it'll change you from within, and you become a better person. When you unconditionally love people, even if you see someone that is doing harm in the world, an evil person that appears to be evil, you have to understand that inside them, there's something causing that. It didn't just develop. It did develop. What am I saying? It's not that they're that way permanently. Something caused that to happen. And we have a collective responsibility to take care of each other. And if we took care of one another, we wouldn't have these problematic people. They would get help, and they would be turned around. They can take a positive person and make them negative, and they can take a negative person, and you can take a negative person and make them positive. So we have to change something within. We have to look at the world. We have to look at each other in a different way. Excuse me. And once we do that, we'll start to connect with the little bit of God that we can get through this planetary consciousness simulation. And I tell you this, it's just enough. It's just enough to tip these scales and turn this around, because we have to do this on our own while everything else is happening behind the scenes. And I will tell you this, there is an effort to get rid of these dumbs. There is an effort to get rid of these extraterrestrials. The dumbs have to be cleaned out, and they have to be eliminated. They have to be killed and their souls have to be imprisoned, and they have to be taken away from this world, because we're never going to have an earth that is in harmony. We're never going to have peace. We're never going to learn how to love one another. So they have to go. But while we're waiting for that to take place, we need to treat each other differently and see the world through a different set of eyes.
I totally agree, man. I think that was really well said. And I was just going to put a thing in the chat. Like, if anybody has any questions, you guys can email me. I put my email in the chat. It's typicalskeptic1@gmail.com. It's real easy. You know, if you have an experience or story you want to share, or if you want to share your story with Nate, you can email him. One of us, you know, email you back. Or Nate deals with that more than I do. You know, I just have people on to share their stories. I have people on from all sides, because I feel like we, you know, like I'm like Art Bell, guys. Like I just report the news. So, but I mean, maybe it's a little bit more than that. But I like to think of myself that way. But Nate, thank you so much, man. This was awesome. And can you tell everybody where to find you and all that stuff?
Yeah, I just like to say you're like the rebel Art Bell. You're like the Art Bell that we wanted to have but didn't get. So I just wanted to let you know that. Telegram. I'm on Telegram. The name of the group is called Project Ibis. The problem is, if you create a group on Telegram and you name it something, then you change it, you can't find it in the search results. I'm going to be changing it back. Now, I had accused them of shadow banning me, but I think it's more of an issue with their system. So so it's called Planetary Consciousness Project. If you look that up, you can find it. Look up Planetary Consciousness or Planetary Consciousness Project. I sent you a link, Rob, to put underneath the video. We've got about 52 or 53 members right now. It's starting to grow, and we're starting to get some interesting characters in there. People have been, attacked by the government. Contactees are showing up. So really starting to get an unusual group of people, really special individuals who are really contributing great information. I want to build that into a larger community. So you can reach me there. You can directly answer. I mean, I'll talk to anybody. I'm very open. I have no paywalls. I'm more than willing to talk to anyone. I make everything that I can public with this project. So I don't hide anything unless there's people that need to hide themselves for their own purposes and safety. But I'm pretty much very transparent. My name is real. It's Nathan Cizik. I don't hide that. It's not a synonym or an alias. You can also find me on the Hajan Contactee channel here on YouTube and some of the other platforms like Rumble. You can find me on the Voices of Orion project. I'm just slowly building those channels up and uploading my videos. And I'll be back this Saturday or Sunday with a new video after my suspension is lifted for mentioning the bat sandwich theory. So that'll be that's going to be a good thing, because I have to thank YouTube for suspending me, because it gave me a chance to think and to look at ways that I wasn't really thinking about before to promote the channel and create some kind of a backup, because I can't depend on being here, because they don't want me here. They don't want this type of content on there. And I kind of get that feeling with Rumble too. They'd like to get rid of the fringe, as they call it, and just stick with the politics. But there's not a lot on Rumble right now. But I'm going to be expanding to other type of video sharing platforms as well. What I'm going to do is give this my all. I'm going to put everything into it. In years prior, I tried to get this project off the ground, but the psychic harassment that I was going through prevented me from doing it. And I've got the upper hand. Earlier on, I was being attacked. I've actually, I didn't remove the attachments, but I found out that there's a way that I can actually force my way through it. And for the most part, circumvent the effects. So I'm not going through what I was going through earlier, where I was trying to formulate words, and it was just like I was having, it's like an autistic glitch. I mean, it's like a brain glitch. You can feel it coming on, and then what they're doing is they're interrupting the brain patterns for your speech. And then it actually, creates a problem, so you can't say the word. So that's what they were doing to me earlier, but that's already over with. I'm sure you can tell. But anyway, yeah, I'm trying to expand this as much as I can in light of the shadow banning and efforts against me. And my goal is ultimately, the goal is to expose what's going on in this community and help people that are victims of these virtual temple complexes, because that's very important to me. I've interviewed some people They're not, I mean, these interviews aren't public. One of them is, but I've talked to a lot of people, and it's very, very heartbreaking. After the third interview that I had this week, these are just interviews where I don't record anything. I just hear their testimony. I had to break down and cry to release the energy. It was so bad because when you hear people who have had their lives destroyed, it really, really affects you. So that's my goal, is simply to help people, because I got help too. And I want to lead these people on the same path that I took out of this, because I made my own trail and I want people to follow it. It starts by going public and shedding the stigma, shedding the fear, and accepting the fact that this is real and there's other people going through it and you're not the only one. And the community itself is open to this. They're not going to call you crazy. I'm not here to convince the world that this is happening. I'm here to expose it to the people that matter, who are being targeted by it, and give them some kind of resource to help themselves. And I hope that after I'm gone from this world, that other people will continue to do this, because it's very important work.
I had to show this comment before we close out, and then we'll close out right after this. This is a new subscriber. She says, this channel is severely underrated. Rob, you went on a self-condescending rant earlier.
That's absolutely right, man. I mean, this channel is, you've done more than a lot of people could do. I'm trying to do something similar to you, Rob, but you've given people a voice, and it's created things. It's actually put a lot of things into motion. If you look at it like a nucleus, and then everything that you set into motion is like little things shooting off of it in all directions, well, that's what you're doing. You're having a ripple effect through the community, and you're giving people the opportunity, to speak, and you're putting out information that's different, that needs to be out, and people need to hear it. And so you've done a lot of good, and she's absolutely right.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone, and I appreciate you, Nate. And I appreciate everybody. We have to, the way to finish up everything, I think we have to try to get all sides of the coin of the paranormal. I like to look at it as the paranormal, because I cover the paranormal. I cover psychic phenomena. I cover near-death experiences. I think we need to look at all that, because it's all, it's all relevant. So, all right. Well, we'll end this, because I got to do the show. I'm going to end the broadcast now. Have a